dark, scary night, kind of like tonight.
Where are you gonna go? Where are you gonna run? Where are you gonna hide?
Do you wanna die tonight?
Where am I going? We will need eyes to see.
Wow, that's our new intro. Thank you, Andrew, for coming up with that. It's pretty awesome.
Okay, I just grabbed the sound clips. It is all our wonderful gaffer and music director of Dismembering Christmas, Dylan. I mean, he put it together. It was just, like, for me, it would have taken me, 3 days to do that. It took him, a half hour because he was just boom, 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 done.
Yeah, I would have been the same way. I would keep second guessing myself, and I'd probably end up doing it 30 times. And then the one that I probably liked the best was probably the first one that I had done in an hour.
That's usually how it goes. So I was just happy that it all came out the way I wanted. So
no, that's
yay.
awesome. Yeah, I think it's gonna be really good. So let us know what you guys think of it. Hopefully you guys like it. So yeah, we're back with a brand new episode of Slasher Studios Horror Podcast. Tonight we're talking about Blank from Hell movies, but before we get into that, have you had a chance to watch any new horror movies lately?
I watched a movie called The Hoarder with Misha Barton, and it's just as good as it sounds in the fact that it's awful. I was reading a review from, I believe it was ihorror.com, where they're like, oh, it's such a good movie, it's so good. And I watched it and I'm like, did we watch the same movie? Because this is terrible. Okay, Misha Barton, for one, she consistently talks like her nose is stuffed up, which that's fine. That's just how she talks, but it's a little distracting. But not only that, she does not emote. I mean, it's like watching a piece of drywall where it's like, oh my God, my friend Molly is dead. We have to go get her. She just looks like she does not want to be there whatsoever. And I was really disappointed because I was excited because I thought the concept sounded fun, but unfortunately it was less than stellar. Tonight, after we're done, I think I'm going to watch The Girl in the Photographs, which is Wes Craven's last movie, but he just kind of produced it. He wasn't, the director.
Yeah, I've heard.
And it stars Catherine Isabelle, so of course.
Now,
is
she the lead in it?
I don't know. I just know that she's in it. So,
with
my luck,
what were you gonna say?
With my luck, she's gonna with my luck, she's gonna be the cameo in 5 minutes in the end where she explains everything that goes on. So, who knows?
Well, I won't give too much away, but from what I heard, she is only in one scene.
Okay. So, yeah, she's either I'm going to explain everything that's going on because it happened to me, or she's going to be the person that dies in the beginning because she's the biggest actress in the movie. Either or, I'm fine with.
Yeah, I have a feeling it's probably going to be the later one, just from what I've heard. Yep. So hopefully it's good.
I mean, in my defense, I even have she's got some WWF movie or WWE movie called Countdown with Kane and another wrestler where it's a 90s action movie looking thing. That's even in my my Amazon queue because I'm I will watch her in anything. I don't care. Scout Taylor Compton fanboys, I get it. I don't get it, but I kind of understand where you're coming from because I adore her. So I'm not mad at you.
Yeah,
no, maybe a little.
That'll be interesting, yeah, because I've heard mixed things. But yeah, I mean, the premise sounds pretty good, and I mean, it was Wes Craven's, last film, even though he did just produce it. But I mean, either way, I'm definitely curious. You have to let me know if it's worth checking out.
Yeah, I definitely will. I mean, it's $4 to rent on Amazon. I mean, I've sat through worse for $4.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like, I mean, it's different when you actually have to, like, lug yourself to the theater and pay for, like, a movie ticket price and, you know, go through all of that. But, you know, I think that, you know, with kind of the invention, I guess, of VOD, I think it's really kind of tempered people's expectations. Whereas, like, oh, wow, like, who cares?
Yeah, and, did I talk about Killer Mermaid last week?
No, I think you'd watched that this last weekend.
Oh, did I ever? What can I say about Killer Mermaid? So it was me and Dylan and a couple of Dylan's friends, and we like Russian rouletted it on Netflix, and we came up with Killer Mermaid. The Killer Mermaid does not show up until about an hour and 15 minutes in the movie. The rest of the kills are done by like a fisherman guy. B, it is so bad. It was basically like, oh, we're going to film in like a foreign country and there's this great like abandoned prison on an island that we can use. So what can we film around this? And this is what they came up with. And it's just it's so bad. I was so mad because I had heard good reviews about it and it was just very lackluster.
Yeah, I had checked it out when it first hit Netflix, and I think I got about a half an hour in. When it kind of started, I'm like, okay, well, like, you know, the cinematography is really good. Like, it actually looks a lot better than what I was expecting. But then it was, you know, we talked about this before, but it's got, like, the cardinal sin of bad movie making, whereas, like, I'm like, okay, it looks good, but, I mean, like, this isn't even so bad. It's fun. It was just boring. And, yeah, I maybe got 30 minutes and not that far, and I'm just like, well, whatever.
Yeah, and it's just it's very upsetting because, like, again, you had such a great location to film in, and it's just like a crap story wrapped around it, and it's a waste of a good location, like Chernobyl Diaries, or oh God, what was the other one that I was super pissed about? Death Tunnel, where they were at the Waverly Hills Sanitarium. And I was like, you had all of that at your disposal, and you came up with this. And not only that, they pissed the owners of the Waverly Hills Sanitarium off so bad, they will never let anybody else film there. So it's just kind of like a twofer of, like, I hate you.
I didn't even know that. That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but apparently the filming was so unpleasant that the people that own the Waverly Hills Sanitarium were just like, we're never letting anyone ever film here again.
Ugh.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think, like, you know, to give kind of the filmmakers the benefit of the doubt, I think that a lot of people don't understand how long it takes to film stuff. Like, I don't think they realize that, hey, we're going to be here 14, 16-hour days, you know, for, like, 3 weeks straight. So, I mean, but, yeah, yeah, that's hard.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it was just because, like, I know they were, like, young filmmakers who did Death Tunnel, so odds are they probably just, like, left it a mess and broke stuff and stuff like that. But at the same time, there's no excuse. I mean, we were young filmmakers in Dismembering Christmas, and as much as she likes to say otherwise, we had that house in immaculate immaculate condition when we left. So there's no excuse. I mean, if you're granted the permission to film in a great location like that, don't destroy it.
Yeah, I mean, don't, especially for everybody else. You know, yeah, you might have paid for, you know, the rental or whatever, but, like, yeah, I don't really get that with people in general. Where, you know, I worked at a video store. We would regularly get back movies that were just, like, that had, like, food on them and, like, were scratched to hell. I'm just like, don't people have any more respect, like, for stuff that doesn't belong to them?
I see you that and raise you. At the bar I work with, we were dealing with a broken urinal, and we finally figured out it's because someone decided to dump concrete down the urinal, and we had to completely rip out the pipes and put in new pipes. Like, this is how the world is going now. Like, my mind is still. I don't know. That's the thing. It's ridiculous, but it's just
that's so weird.
I know, and it's super destructive. I mean, we were lucky that we just had to pull out the one pipe. I've seen it on like HGTV shows where like foreclosures and stuff like that, they dump the concrete down the drains before they leave because they're pissed, and they have to like completely redo all of the plumbing in the house. Like, the fact that we only had to do like a 3-foot piece of pipe is like a godsend. But
do you guys have any idea who it was or anything?
No clue. We don't even know when it was.
Wow. Yeah, that's kind of a horror story in and of itself.
It's frustrating because it's just like, you know what? We're a small business. I mean, yes, we've been there for 60 years, but we're a small bar. Why are you trying vehemently to like ruin us? But
people are awful.
Yeah, that's a topic for another night.
So yeah, getting into the topic of our show tonight. Well, I guess that kind of counts with what we're talking about. You could kind of put that under like customers from hell.
Oh God, yes. Customers from hell.
There you go. Yeah, put that, like, make a horror movie about the bar.
Oh, trust me, I've thought about it, but there's just too much to pick from.
That'd just be too scary.
Be frightened.
So, the From Hell movies, what we're going to be talking about on our show tonight, they really became popular in the late 80s. They were around before that. There were kind of other ones, like movies from the 70s, like Play Misty for Me. And, I mean, there are kind of movies of this genre, but the biggest one really, and still like the biggest grossing film, or highest grossing film of these From Hell movies, is Fatal Attraction, which came out in 1987. And that kind of really started kind of this, I guess, landslide of these kind of, From Hell movies. And what's really interesting is, I mean, this would never happen today in a million years, but Fatal Attraction was actually nominated for 6 Oscars.
Well, and I can see why. I mean, acting performances alone, I mean, it's pretty stellar. I mean, Glenn Close kills it, and it's hard to top her performance. And I know a lot of these, like, actors and actresses in these movies try, but she set the bar way high for this kind of stuff. So, yeah,
I mean, I guess we can talk about this right away because, I mean, it's part of the subject, but I think that there's kind of a miscalculation when it comes to playing one of these From Hell roles. Too often they just come across as crazy right away, and you don't really, especially kind of these Fatal Attraction type movies, like, there's got to be some kind of appeal to them. Is it sex appeal? What is it about them that's going to drive this other person to them? Finally, they see that they're crazy, they're going to want to get away. But if they seem crazy right away, that's not going to work.
No. And it's hard because a lot of times when people are told to play crazy, they think just getting, like, really loud and shrill and screaming a lot, like, they don't, like, you need to hit, like, the subtle notes of crazy before you get, like, full blown, where you just see that there's something underneath, but it's not, like, out in the open just yet. And it's hard for a lot of these people to really kind of capture that.
Yeah, because I mean, I completely agree with you. If you're going to kind of go for that kind of role where you're very over the top and very kind of melodramatic, and you have to be a really good character actor to pull that off. I mean, you got to be somebody like Kathy Bates or Laurie Metcalf or Glenn Close, where we have like these younger ones, like a more recent movie that we can talk about a little bit later, but like The Roommates, it doesn't. There's kind of like this fine line where it doesn't quite work, where it's just like, okay, well, I understand what you're trying to do here, but it kind of just feels like you're having a temper tantrum.
Although, in defense of The Roommate, I was going to say that the first, like, 3/4 of that movie, Leighton Meester does a very good, like, subtle crazy, but then, I mean, you can only do so much with what you have to work with, and I feel like they let her down because, I mean, I did think, like, the first, like, couple of times, like, she just had this, like, bubbling thing going on, like, when she's dousing the guy in gasoline and has the lighter, like, it's just, like, kind of this blank smirk where I'm just kind of like, huh. But then, yes, like you said, she kind of loses it because they probably were like, just go over the top. Kind of like Emma Roberts in Scream 4. Just scream a lot and get mad and yell.
Well, and I mean, not to give too much away for that movie, though, is like, you have kind of like this PG-13 kind of teeny bopper thriller, and there's a death in that movie involving an animal that feels so out of place with the rest of the tone of that movie that it just, like, it was kind of like that point where I'm like, this is really distasteful. Like, there was no reason for that. I'm not going to say what happened, but if you're a fan of cats, you won't like it.
Okay, basically what they did is they took the entire template of single white female and reduced it to college roommates. Instead of getting her hair cut, she gets the same tattoo. Instead of killing the dog, they kill the cat. I mean, it's almost beat for beat the same, like, story. Like, there's nothing new about it. Maybe it's because I was a fan of the actress beforehand, but I was just kind of like, Leighton Meester deserved to be in a better movie than she was in. So it's a shame,
well,
but...
And I mean, I don't have any problems necessarily with them killing an animal, but I mean, when you're going to kind of go like single white female and you're going to go for a hard R rating, that kind of fits that kind of movie better than it would for like a PG-13 MTV type film.
Well, exactly. I mean, the PG-13 rating hindered it greatly to the fact where I don't think really anybody else dies. It's just the cat. And that's why it feels so out of place, is because everybody else is like, oh, they're dead. And then all of a sudden they pop up last minute being like, I'm not dead. So it's just kind of like all of that. Like, it was an incredibly disappointing movie, but I feel like she gave a better performance than was needed. But yeah, the movie still sucks, and I wouldn't recommend.
Yeah, and I mean, that kind of goes right there. I mean, you can tell like what works and what doesn't work with their genre. So, I mean, is there one in particular that you kind of like to jump right off with? We talked a little bit about what works for Fatal Attraction, what doesn't necessarily work for The Roommates, but let's have one of your picks to see what you'd like to...
One of my, like, absolute favorite From Hell movies is The Crush with Alicia Silverstone, Carrie Elways, and Jennifer Rubin. Now, the thing about The Crush is it is a true story, not like Texas Chainsaw Massacre-esque where it's like, oh, inspired by... It is like a true story to the point where the writer of the movie used the actual girl's name in the movie. So, like, all the DVDs and everything are now dubbed, instead of Darian, it's Adrian, because she sued, because she was just like, I don't need this. But it's a writer moves into, like, a carriage house of a giant mansion, and the 14-year-old daughter takes a little bit too much of a liking to him. And I mean, this was the movie that made Alicia Silverstone. I mean, you can say Clueless and everything like that, but if it wasn't for The Crush, she would have never won the MTV Movie Award. If she never won the MTV Movie Award, Aerosmith would have never seen The Crush. They never would have cast her in the videos. If she was never in the videos, she never would have gotten Clueless. So, I mean, it all started with The Crush, and she gives just, I mean, Carrie Elways is Carrie Elways. He's kind of the same, like, dippy look. Jennifer Rubin does good with what she has to do with, but this is Alicia Silverstone's movie, and she kicks ass. She's so good in it. So I recommend The Crush. It's a trashy mid-90s movie like that, but, oh, it's so good.
Yeah, and you're right. I think The Crush is one of those, and for those of you who don't know, it's actually coming to Blu-ray, courtesy of Scream Factory later this year. So that's exciting. But, yeah, The Crush works because of her performance. And this is kind of one of those movies that kind of plays that fine line, but it actually works because, for the most part, Alicia Silverstone looks really cute, and she looks very nice, and she's very innocent. And then this stuff starts to come out about her character and, like, how far she's willing to go to get with this man who could, you know, possibly be her dad, like, you know, in age-wise. It's very, you're right.
Unsettling.
It kind of plays it. Yeah, it's unsettling, and it works because it's not something that, like, it either beats you over the head with or, you know, you get that right away. But, yeah, it's got kind of that undercurrent vibe where you're just kind of waiting for things to go bad. And when they do, it's pretty crazy.
Mhm. But yeah, that was the, like, first one to come to my mind when we discussed, like, from hell movies.
Well, I actually have another one that's from around that era. It's a couple of years later, but it's pretty close. It also deals kind of a teen infatuation that goes bad, and that's the movie Fear with Mark Wahlberg and Reese Witherspoon. The thing about Fear is that I don't think, like, for people that have not seen it recently, it's a lot darker than what people remember. There's stuff with Alyssa Milano's character, and there's a good chase scene. The whole final act is very much laid out, you know, in this, like, big, you know, house with, like, you know, the security system and stuff. I mean, it's like a finale, like, right out of, you know, it could have been right out of a Scream movie. It's really well executed. It's really well done. But what I like about this movie that also works with The Crush is that it works because you can see the appeal. You can see why Reese would go for this guy. You know, he's a bad boy, but at the same time, like, he seems sweet. And you have kind of this parent reaction. It's like, oh, there's something off, but I can't really say what exactly is off. And kind of one thing leads to another. And, yeah, it's one of those that, much like The Crush, it works because the central performances are believable enough that even when the story gets a little bit too out there, you're willing to just kind of buy it because you're kind of in for the ride.
Mhm. Well, and again, like, the actors, like, the material, and they elevate it. I mean, even, like, Alyssa Milano, who I've never been that big of a fan of, she does a great job. I mean, there's parts in this movie which, not to sound, like, ridiculous, but, like, it's kind of heartbreaking because you see how, like, oh, God, I don't even know. Like, I don't want to spoil too much of it, but then again, the movie is 22 years old. So, okay, so there's a part where Reese Witherspoon goes to Marky Wahlberg's house. It's always going to be Marky Wahlberg, by the way. And she sees Alyssa Milano with her boyfriend smoking meth, and Mark Wahlberg, like, grabs Alyssa Milano and drags her into the bedroom with her, and Reese Witherspoon, being a bitchy 16-year-old, is like, she's sleeping with my man, whereas Alyssa Milano is like, he forced me, I was high, and, like, Reese Witherspoon's, like, storming out and, like, locking the door, and Alyssa Milano's just like, you can't do this, you're my only friend, where I was just like, oh, like, oh, Alyssa Milano, I liked you for, like, a second.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of really sad. I mean, you kind of get this backstory of, used to be best friends, one person kind of took the right path, one person kind of took the wrong path, but it's believable because the actors do a really good job of selling it.
Exactly. That's pretty much, I mean, when the actors can elevate the material is when you know that it's going to be better than expected. And then William Peterson plays the dad, and he's great, so.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, he's kind of, that overprotective dad, but it works because, I mean, if I had a daughter that was like Reese doing, like, yeah, I would not want this guy with me there. So there you go.
Well, exactly.
So
he's the overprotective dad, but he's not a cliche of the overprotective dad. I mean, there's more to him than just being the overprotective dad. So my next one is The Stepfather from, I want to say, like, 1987. Yep, 1987. Now, this one is kind of, it was before, like, the whole Fatal Attraction and everything, but it's still in the same kind of vein where it's, the one guy is very unsettling to the daughter, but nobody else sees it, and he's creepy. Terry O'Quinn does an excellent job as the title character, the stepfather. Jill Schoelen is great, as always, as the teenage daughter. It's a shame she does not get more recognition of being a scream queen because, quite frankly, she has nailed it in so many horror movies, and people just, I don't know what it is, but she should be much more known in the genre.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's funny because I actually had The Stepfather as the next one that I was going to tackle one of my list. So, great minds think alike. The first one's really, really, really good. It's more of a psychological thriller. The second one is kind of the same movie as the first one, but it's done more of like it's very much more of a slasher. I mean, it's there's more killings. It's just more over the top. I like them both. You talked about what really works in the first one. In the second one, Carolyn Williams, kind of the nosy, brash best friend, whatever whatever on her mind, and you can have this character that's like, yep, Meg Foster's really good too, and there's kind of this whole ending that kind of takes place at their wedding. That's kind of this huge finale. That it's really good. Like both of those movies. The third one, if you haven't seen it, stay away from it. It's unbelievably boring. It's supposedly the same character, but it's a different actor, and they kind of do like this side plot about, oh, he had to get plastic surgery based on what had happened, and you don't want anyone to recognize him. No, it's that he wouldn't come back to do it. I mean, that's obvious. But it's just not a good movie in general. I know that it hasn't gotten a DVD release, and people have been wondering why. The real answer is that it's just not good. Like, if you haven't seen it, there's probably a good reason for it.
Yeah, I honestly don't think I've ever seen it. I keep meaning to watch it, but now I'm good.
Well, I mean, just to give you kind of an idea about the third one, it's just under 2 hours long. It's like an hour, 55 minutes, so it's really long in general. But, I mean, we kind of, go from, Jill Schoelen, who's very good in the first one, and then in the second one you have Jonathan Brandis, and he's solid. I mean, he's okay. I mean, he's not bad. But in the third one, you have this kid in a wheelchair, and, I mean, there's something wrong with it, obviously, but he's so whiny and just like, you have to do everything for me, like, and it's just, no, just do yourself a favor, avoid it.
No, yeah, it sounds like having Franklin from Texas Chainsaw Massacre as the lead character, so, no.
Yeah. Stepfather 2, both really, really good movies. I'm going to do another shout out to a movie that's not particularly great, but I think it's worth checking out. It's from 1998, and it's Hush, starring Jessica Lange and Gwyneth Paltrow. Well, this is one of those movies that I believe it was originally supposed to come out in 96. It had a different title. It was called Kill Ronan, which is the name of this farm that it takes place on. It was a pretty hard R rating, and if you actually watch the trailer for this, there's a number of scenes that are in the trailer that are not in the final film. I mean, it's not just even little things. I mean, you see this big barn on the fire and all this stuff. None of that is in the final film. It finally was renamed Hush. It got a PG-13 rating. I believe it wasn't screened for critics. It came out in 98. I don't even think that they had a red carpet premiere or anything for it, because I know that Gwyneth Paltrow said in a later interview that she has never seen it. But for all of this aside...
But, I mean, come on. In all honesty, Gwyneth Paltrow in any interview is just like, shut up, Gwyneth Paltrow. It's one of those things where I would say that, kind of now that Jessica Lange, she kind of has like this new kind of cult of followers from American Horror Story. If you like kind of that bitchy, Southern woman who's always got a cigarette in one hand and, a glass of vodka in the other, and, it's trashy. What it is, I'm going to say what it is it's a Lifetime movie with A-list actors, and it's trashy, and it's dumb, and it's stupid, but it's a lot of fun. It's barely 90 minutes long. Like I said, if you like kind of the characters that she's been playing in American Horror Story, here's kind of where it started to originate. And she gives a great performance as kind of this crazy mom from hell that kind of is in love with her son in the wrong way. But it's very weird, but check it out. It's not very good, but you might like it. Yeah, I can't say anything because I've never seen it. So I've always wanted to. I just never did.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely worth checking out. I mean, especially if you like Jessica Lange. I mean, in every single scene, she just chews the scenery. I mean, she kind of plays one of those moms that, like, you can tell, like, she's looking over the balcony and, you see, like, that one eye and, like, the smoke from, like, the cigarette. And it's just, oh, God, you can tell, like, she just knew this was a piece of trash, but she was going to sell it for every minute of it.
Well, and that's what you kind of have to love about some of these actors and actresses, when they know they're just in crap, but they're still going to give it their all. Much like she did with American Horror Story Season 3.
So what else do you got?
No. Oh, do I ever? I am going to go with another one that's not very good, but it's pretty trashy and fun. 1993's The Temp, with Lara Flynn Boyle, Timothy Hutton, and Faye Dunaway. And it is so silly. I mean, it's a cookie company that is launching a new cookie, and Lara Flynn Boyle comes on as the temp of Timothy Hutton, and he starts thinking that she's evil, and like bad things start happening, like the rival cookie company that his friend works at, that he saw his friend with Lara Flynn Boyle, all of a sudden announces the same product, and broken glass in some of the it's so over the top and silly, but it's still pretty amazing. So I will always be like, just watch it. Lara Flynn Boyle as a crazy temp is just 2 thumbs up.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it just kind of makes you wonder. You're just like, how did this movie get sold? You have like this possibly crazy woman at this cookie factory, and it's so ridiculous. And there's there's a really good kind of, I guess, finale, the final act, especially, like, oh, God, like, it's like cliche and have a cliche and have a cliche. But it works because, like we said before, the actors really give it their all, and it's trashy, but it's not boring, and that's kind of the line you kind of have to cross, where it's like, okay, well, this isn't very good, but I'm having a good time here, so everything's fine.
Exactly. It's cheesy entertainment, like early 90s, post Fatal Attraction. Just it's like A-list movie trash.
No, I mean, that's exactly what it is. And I'm actually going to talk about another one that's kind of A-list movie trash. This one kind of, though, is a little bit better than that, just because I think it's got a better script and the performances are very good. For the late 90s, in the late 90s, there was a movie, I guess not even the late 90s, it was 94 now that I'm checking, Disclosure with Demi Moore and Michael Douglas, where you have this woman who works at this company with him, and this is one of those movies where I don't want to get too much away, but there's a late night working and something happens to the two of them. She accuses him of sexual harassment, and one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. What works about this movie, though, is the fact that it actually takes a serious, like, legitimate subject, and it does handle it, for kind of sex scenes, for lack, of a better purpose, but it's really well handled. It's gorgeously shot. The performances are good. It's very much a movie of the 90s, especially, I mean, just like, where they work and just kind of like the technology. It's like, oh, yeah, virtual reality and all this stuff. I mean, for some reason, like movies from like 92 to like 95 were just like obsessed with that kind of stuff. I don't know why. I never remember like us talking about it like on a daily basis, but if you believe the movies from that time, you believe that everyone was trying to do virtual reality stuff. But that's a whole other story. It's a good movie, really well shot, good acting. Yeah, it's fun. It's nothing amazing, but it does the job that it needs to do, and it does it well.
I don't think I've ever finished it. I think I've tried to watch it like 4 or 5 times, and every time I try to watch it, I'm just like, I can't deal with this. I mean, Demi Moore is good, like, as the villain, but it's not something that like grabs a hold of me and like keeps me entertained. I think I own it, so I should probably sit down and finish it, but that's not like a knock on if it's good or bad. It's just I don't really.
Well, I'm right. Like, this is kind of the movie that it is, and this is either going to sell you on it or it's not. What it really is if the John Grisham movies from the 90s, if one of those happened to be a Blank from Hell movie, it would be Disclosure.
Oh, all right. Okay. Maybe I do need to give it another whirl. I mean, it's been a while since I've tried, and I think the last time I tried to watch it, I had the flu, so I was asleep within 10 minutes.
Yeah, and I mean, I haven't watched it in a few years either, so I mean, maybe it's not great, but I remember it being fun at least.
But yeah, it's I mean, it's hard to like, because a lot of these movies are pretty trashy and are very kind of, I mean, they're not great by any means, but there's enough to them where you don't hate them. I mean, I have a few, because we only have like 5 minutes left, so I mean, like, Sleeping with the Enemy with Julia Roberts. Is it a great movie? No, not at all. Is it an entertaining movie? Absolutely. And it's the fact that like it was her first like big role after Pretty Woman is this kind of like trashy like husband from hell. Yeah.
Yeah, Sleeping with the Enemy is just whole. I mean, you know, with movies like this, you kind of have to just kind of, you know, be like, okay, well, I'm just going to give them the benefit of the doubt. You know, there's going to be contrivances along the way. God, with this one, though, it's like, oh, yeah, like, she's been taking swimming lessons for the last year. Like it's so funny, though, because the way that they kind of try to talk their way out of kind of these plot holes actually kind of digs them into bigger plot holes. We're just like, wait, hold on. Like, this guy was very obsessive and pretty much watch her for every minute and let her do anything, but she was able to take lessons to learn how to swim so she'd get away from him on the boat and take her on death. It's so preposterous, but it's fun because of that reason. You know, if you go into this is another one of those too, where it really is. It's an R-rated, big budget, big star Lifetime movie, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, if you know, there's kind of movies for everybody, and if it works and the actors are good and willing to sell it all, like, who cares?
Exactly. I mean, it made over $100 million in the box office, so clearly I was not the only one that enjoyed it, but what can you do?
No, it's really good. Like, I think with that, like, it works. Like, it's good. So another one that's incredibly trashy that I'm going to talk about real quick, because I've only got a few minutes. I just want to give a shout out to Flowers in the Attic. This was kind of one of those movies, and I was like a little kid, like, it was like hushed about because like there's stuff in it with incest, and there's lots of religion, and you have this fat crazy mom who's a real bitch, and you have a grandma who pretty much, you know, locks up her kids and doesn't let them out because there's this whole backstory about like, oh, she had sex with her like second, third cousin, whatever, and that's what the kids were a result of that, and it's so sanctimoniously awful. Like, you're just like, okay, come on. Like, it just kind of drips with kind of that, like, you know, Catholic sexual guilt. But it's you got Louise Fletcher. She's great as this, you know, very stern grandma. She doesn't play it over the top. She can play an entire scene with just a look, and sometimes that's better than an entire monologue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think I've seen that one since I was a kid. So, I mean, in all honesty, I don't remember anything about it except for Christy Swanson's in it, and she bops her brother.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, I mean, people, I think that was one of those, like, popular movies that people watched when they were a kid, and, like, they'll remember, like, little bits and pieces. They'll be like, oh, yeah, like, I remember, like, her ballerina figurine or whatever that fell, or, like, I remember the bitch of a grandma cutting her hair, like, just, like, random stuff like that, but it's, I wish that we could have gotten this hard-rated R movie. If you guys own the DVD, the original release of it from Anchor Bay, there's actually, they use the promo poster as the insert in it. It actually says on there, written and directed by Wes Craven. He only was going to do the movie if he could do a very hard R-rated, like, you know, it was going to be a very serious thriller. They wanted to go PG-13, so he backed out of it. But that's kind of like, oh, yeah, we get, like, proof of that. But, yeah, like, the inserts in there, it's pretty funny to look at. But, yeah, it's worth checking out.